Hello and welcome to Elvis Fans Matter, our YouTube video, and this time we're going to talk about twins. Of course, you know where I'm going with it. Elvis and his twin brother. First of all, Elvis's doctor, whose name was Dr. Hunt, and I don't know his first name. I guess you could look it up.
Mike.
I know it's not Mike. You know. And anyway, but there's a joke behind that, which y'all would. I'm sorry you wouldn't get it. But anyway, he, Aunt Gladys was, in labor, and back then, the doctors, they went to people's homes to deliver babies, not to, that the women went to the hospital and all. Maybe some did, that had money, but most of them, they didn't. They just, went to the homes and deliver them. And this was taking place on over in the morning. Anyway, there was some people there. I know Minnie Mae and Jesse were there, and I don't know if my Uncle Robert and my grandmother Marcel, if they were there or not. But anyway, she was, having a few little problems, delivering, and finally, Jesse Guerin, he was born, and of course he was stillborn, and they took him and wrapped him in a blanket, and they had a little table like there, and they laid him on the table, and of course Aunt Gladys was still, moaning and carrying on about, labor pains, and so they, they knew that there was another one coming. And I think Danielle brought up something about, back then, about were Elvis and Jesse paternal twins or fraternal twins. I can't answer that because I really don't know, and doctors didn't keep a record of that kind of stuff. They just, babies, and that was it, so, I mean, that's something we'll probably never know for sure, but anyway, that's the way things was turning out, and finally Elvis was born, and everybody was already down, and low and grieving, because that first one, and and to have the second one, at least it was, alive, and I think, some degree that that cheered them up some, but still you got this balance of, God, are you happy or are you sad, and both of these emotions running through you, and I don't know, I wasn't there, but I can imagine how they might have felt, and it makes me understand a lot of why Aunt Gladys was by Elvis the way she was. I mean, she lost one and she had one, and she was so protective, afraid that she might lose that second one, that, gosh, everything went for him, everything was done for him, and she showed it, and I think everybody could see, his love for his mother and his father too. Don't never take anything away from him. He was there, and Elvis loved him, too, just as much, so. But anyway, it wasn't till years later that I was in my teenage years to be, to tell you a little bit, because I didn't, as a kid growing up and all that, and the difference in our age, I never really, really thought much about it. And then, when I got on up as a teenager, well, we happened to be talking, and it came about, and he said, my twin brother, I did have a twin. I said, yeah, I'd heard that. I said, do you miss him? And all, I said, does it ever come across you? He said, yeah. He said, a lot of times, it comes to mind, and sometimes I feel empty inside, I don't know what it is. He said, but the heck of it is, he said, I never knew my twin. So, I never, hardly ever, talk about him or think that much about him. He said, so it'd been different maybe, if he'd have been like, 9 or 10 years old and lost him that way, then, I would know how it felt to, to actually lose a brother. He said, but by him being stillborn, he said, I never really knew him. He said, but he said, there's times when I do, feel alone and feel like, something, a part of me is missing. He said, but then maybe that's with everybody. He said, I don't know, maybe that's with every person. He said, but I asked my mother. He said, he said, I was asking Mama about him, and I asked her, I said, Mama, did he look like me as a baby? We kind of look alike as babies. And she said, well, son, yeah, as babies, you did. And she said, but, I don't know if you would have if you got older. Who knows, And why I'm saying this is because I really don't know if they were paternal twins or fraternal twins. I really don't know, and I don't know if they knew back then. Like I say, it's, records weren't keep as well back then as they were, now. So, and but anyway, he said, I wondered. He said, I asked her. He said, Mama, would you think he'd be like me, a singer or a musician and all that? And she said, well, son, I really don't know, because we'll never know. It wasn't meant for us to know, because that wasn't God's will. And we don't understand why one is gone and one is still alive. That's not for us to know. That's in God's hands. But, you were spared, and all I can tell you is, that that's something we can't know. Maybe he would have. And I said, well, he said, I always wondered, golly, man, he said, what would it have been like if he had lived and we had been looked alike and all? He said, and sang together. He said, I always, kind of thought that would we be a duo, or maybe even separately? He said, but would we have reached the stardom that I have reached, now? And golly, he said, it's weird. He said, and I do think about it once in a while. He said, but I know that it wasn't for me to understand, because he was stillborn. And he said, I just do what God, I think, sent me here for, and that was to sing and entertain And he said, God, would the world really, he said, would the world have been ready for two of us? He said, that's just really hard in my mind to imagine. He said, but thank goodness I am, and I've reached success, and I know why, why God gave me a voice, and all he was to be an entertainer, and he said I was just, and I was lucky in a lot of ways. And he said, I often ask myself why me, and what would it be like this, and be like that if my brother had lived. And he said, after a while you get no answers, because there is no answer, because it never did happen, and so you just go on. He said, that's what I've done. He said, really, he said, I very seldom ever talk about it. He said, I try not to, because, not that it stays on my mind. He said, because it really doesn't. He said, I'm busy all the time and working, and when I'm at home, I don't have a whole lot of time. He said, he said, so I don't know, he said, so I don't worry about it. I don't think about it. He said, but once in a great while, and he said, I'll have like a empty feeling. He said, but something? He said, that's probably with everybody, regardless. He said, when they're alone, they got their thoughts and their own memories and stuff. And he said, they may feel the same way. I don't know. I have no idea. He said, but as far as that, he said, that's, basically all I can, say is I'll never know. And so I'll just continue what I'm doing and be who I am. But it always to me, I know a lot of what he felt, as losing someone, but he didn't know the same feeling, I don't think, as I did, because I actually had lost a brother, and I was with my brother, for 27 years. So I always wanted in my mind, naturally, if he had the same sort of feelings that I had when I lost my brother. So, but anyway, that's the only really real times that we ever discussed it, and that was maybe twice that I can remember. Whether or not he discussed it with other people, other members of the group, outsiders, he said, I don't know. And I'm telling you, I really don't know, because he never said if he did or not. He said, or I said, excuse me, not he said, I said, that, he never mentioned it to me of discussing it with anybody else, but when he was alone with other groups of the members or other people, I have no idea. He may have, he may have talked about it more than I thought he did. And of course I wasn't around, because a lot of times it would be one-on-one with other, other guys and other people. So, I can only tell you my little side of the story, and that was it. And that's all I ever heard him mention, was that time or two about his twin. And of course now there's 4 or 5 of them suckers floating out there, that Timmy and Mo and Bo and Harry and whoever, it was different Elvises and different movies and different this and different that. I mean, that's...
There was one Elvis.
But there was, to me, and I could say I could start from about the age 5. To me, from there on, until Elvis died, there was only one, Elvis Presley. And that's the way it is. As the movie says. You know. But anyway, a little break here. I'm pausing because I'm thinking of something else that really kind of blows your mind, and I'll try to explain to you what I'm talking about. This book is called Cairo's Book of Numbers, which is numerology, and it explains a lot of things in this book of how you go about doing it and stuff like that. And I'm going to try to remember most of them that I figured out about, I guess about 4 or 5 years after Elvis passed away and all. I'd always, me and him and, and a lot of other people had studied this book of numbers and stuff, and he was real interested. Now there may be more out there books that is more in detail now, because this was printed back in '64, and there may be others out there that's more informative and all. I don't know, but I just had this one that I've had for many years now. And after about 4 or 5 years, I once in a while go through it, because we were into that a lot back then at the time. And so I got to looking through it, and the more I looked through it, the hairier it got, the more the hair on my head stood up. Now I know all of you are thinking, why? Okay, I'm hoping that I can explain it. Now I can go through most of them, like Elvis Aaron Presley spelt with 1 A, and then Elvis Aaron Presley spelt with 2 A's, like the Jewish part, which is a whole other story in its own of how he came of doing it in 2 A's. And the reason being is because back after Marty and Elvis were talking one time, and we were talking about different things, but anyway, it come up about his name, and Marty said, well, let me ask you something. And Uncle Vernon and a lot of others were around there. He said, Mr. Presley, he said, how did you come up with the name of Aaron, A-R-O-N? And he said, well, I said, I got it out of the Bible. And Marty said, oh, like, who was you maybe thinking about, like Moses' brother? He said, he said, yeah. He said, that's what I was thinking about. He said, well, Mr. Presley, I'm not putting you down or anything, so don't misunderstand me. He said, but his name was spelled with 2 A's. And Uncle Vernon said, well, I didn't know that, He said, but when I gave it to him as Elvis Aaron, and then Jesse, and I don't know if I said this earlier, but back then, you named your kids kind of
Twins,
especially like, right, where they kind of, rhymed and went together. And Aunt Gladys, she wanted to name them both Vernon and his father Jesse, so they named Elvis Aaron Presley. They named Elvis after Vernon, whose middle name was Elvis, and Jesse naturally of his grandfather, whose name was, and they put the Garin in there to have Aaron and Garin, similar, and that's how that came about. But going back to these numbers, if you'll look on there and you take 1935, well, you got 10, 1 and 9. That's 10. And then you got 3 and 5. Well, if you do away with the 1 and 9, then you got 3 and 5, 35. That's 8. If you take Elvis Aaron Presley and you put it together, okay? You take each letter of his name, Elvis, E-L-V-I-S, Aaron, so on. Comes up to 16. That's a 7. If you add that to Vernon's birthday, which he was April the 10th, do away with the O because numerology only goes from 1 to 9, even compound numbers. So his was a 1. Now if you put that 7 and that 1 together, that's an 8. Now if you spell Elvis Aaron Presley with 2 A's, comes out to 8. If you take the months that Gladys and Vernon were born, which was April, that's the 4th month. 4 and 4, that's an 8. And let me see if I can get a little deeper here. If you take his birthday, Vernon and Gladys, okay, if you take their birthdays and you put them together, she was born on April the 25th, that's a 7. Vernon was born on April the 10th, that's a 1. If you put that 7 and 1 together, that's an 8. And I can get even deeper. And if you take Elvis Vernon's number, which is a number 1, and then you take, oh golly, man, I got so many here, it's hard, huh?
Gladys's number's a 7.
Yeah, that come out to an 8, but if you take all these numbers and you can figure your own up yourself and look it up and all, I'm gonna tell you, it's strange that everything, not everything, but everything I looked up and studied comes to an 8, which was Elvis's number 8. Now Elvis, you know, he used to be into this, and he always said, he said the number 8's a kind of a strange number. He said, now if you take the balance of justice and you turn it sideways, and you take that and turn it up, you got 8. And it really, it is, you know. But, so there's a lot of things here, and he, like he said, the number 8, he said, and we had talked about this, he said, the number 8 is a number, he said, in most cases, not all cases, he said, but in most cases, it says that the number 8 is, usually the people wind up either a great success or total failure. And that's also in this book here. So let me tell you, I don't know about everybody else, but there's some awful strange stuff, you know, around him that tells me that's who he should have been, is Elvis Aaron Presley, either way you spell it. And that's why he was destined to be who he was. That's putting in God's hands now, not ours. But if you may want to look this up on your own and maybe yourself, you know, and get your numbers, and it tells you all how you do it in here and explains to you, you know. It even gives you some information about who was born under your sign and your birthday. So that's some interesting. It's a really interesting book if you get to look at it, and for those of you who may be interested in this kind of stuff, you could either get this type of book, which you can still order, or maybe some updated version. It'll maybe tell you more. I don't know. But it always, after I got into it and all, but I quit after about a year or so of this. I quit adding up, but every now and then I think of things that that come up, and sometimes I look at this country and I look at the Statue of Liberty. Now that's a female. It's uncanny how much the Statue of Liberty looks like Elvis. I mean, you take away all the other and just look at the profile, and that's kind of scary. It really is. And they had a biblical portrait of. You remember?
I remember, but I don't remember.
I don't remember the name.
It was in the paper.
But it was in the paper and widely spread how much Elvis and this person looked alike. And some of you probably remember it, and you might even send me a little note and jog this old noodle here who it was. But I still have it. I just didn't have time to get it out before this video, because
this is not to suggest that Elvis was any kind of god.
No, don't misunderstand me. No, I'd never go that far, but I'm just saying I think God has a way of controlling things and doing things, and people who they are by what
His
they
grace.
do and how they are, and let's face it, some of us are chosen to be, great and great successes, and some of us not. But I don't question that. I let it go as it is, because that's God's will, and I leave it there. And with that, I just wanted to thank y'all very much for listening to this story, and hope you enjoyed it, and
A little bit of what we talked about and studied, and what Elvis liked.
Yeah, these are things that we studied. Elvis
With
studied
him.
and with him, and we enjoyed it. And Joe reminded me of certain things, and it helps, because it's fascinating. It still is. Was then, is now. Because I like so many of the things he liked, and he had a way of bringing you into liking certain things that he liked, and that's
It was
what
fun.
made Elvis, and this is my story, and I'm sticking to it. But I want to remind everyone now, please remember, that it don't cost anything to subscribe to our videos. Just hit the subscribe button. It's free. Nothing will be, deducted from your salary, and till I get a hold of it, and then I'm gonna burn it out. No, I'm just kidding, folks. Really, do subscribe, because we need all the subscribers we can possibly get, and we thank you very much for sharing our channel. So tell your friends and all now. Get on there and subscribe, and remember, Elvis fans matter.
Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share.